Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jacky, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. So, Nicky, I'm so excited to have you with me today. Do you want to take a moment to just introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are, where you are in the world, before we jump into the session today?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Nicky Thackray. My business is My Zen Days, so I teach all about mindful living, living a life that means something really special to you, living life on your terms. I live in Tynemouth in the northeast of England, and I'm delighted to be here. So thank you for having me.
It is only a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely love having these conversations, so I know that this one will be no different. And we always start at the same point. So we always start at the beginning of your journey. And what was the moment that led you to realize that you needed to heal? What was the starting point of your journey?
So the starting point for me really was I was in the kitchen. I remember it. I remember the exact moment. And I was on the phone to my mum, actually. My mum had called me and she said, how are you? How's everything? And there was something inside me that just crumbled. And I burst into tears and I said, no, I'm not okay. I'm just not okay. And that was the moment I literally sort of found myself from a kind of physical and emotional and spiritual point of view, just on my knees, completely burnt out. And I had known for quite a while leading up to that something wasn't right. I was really desperately unhappy. I was really stressed. I had a completely different life to the life that I live today. It was I had a high pressure job. I had a lot of travel. I felt like I was never really at home. I had a young child. Well, I've got two children, but one of them was literally about 2 years old. And I just felt like I was never really there. And I felt really disconnected from the things that were most important to me in my life. And I just wasn't happy. The thing is that I'd worked really hard to create this sort of, from the outside looking in, this wonderful career. I had a fancy job title, I had a lovely big house by the beach, all those sorts of things. So from the outside looking at it, it looked like I just had everything sorted, if you like. But inside, I just felt like I didn't have the capacity to enjoy any of it. Because I was stressed all the time. I constantly felt like I should be doing something else. I had that horrendous mum guilt about I'm with my kids, but I'm not really listening to what they're saying because I'm too busy thinking about all of the stuff that needs to be done at work. And so I think my life, I would kind of sum it up before I'd hit that point, was just eat, sleep, work, repeat. And I wasn't finding much joy in it, and I wasn't finding much meaning in it either. And when I sort of cast my vision forward for the next 10, 20, 30 years, I was just really miserable. And all of that caused such a lot of depression. So I had periods of depression, I had periods of anxiety over that kind of 20-year period. And looking back now, what's interesting is it felt like that depression and the anxiety was trying to give me a message. It was trying to say to me, listen, you're not living your life the way that you want to live it. You need to make a change. But it felt like making a change would be really selfish, because there I am, I'm kind of the main breadwinner in the house, and look at everything that we've got, and how selfish would it be for me to want to do something different and risk that. And so I kept telling myself for all of those years, I'm not going to make a change. I can't make a change. And really, it was almost like I was waiting for a sort of message either from my mom and dad or from God or from something, like a sign from the universe to say, you need to move on. You need to make a change. And obviously that was never going to come. That was only ever going to come from me. But for all of those years and in the point leading up to when my healing journey started, I really just tried to squash down the feelings and squash down the ideas and squash down the thoughts, which isn't very healthy. And obviously, it's at a certain point they're going to come out sideways, which is what really happened there. So it was that day when I was on the phone to my mom. She asked me a very innocent question: "How are you?" I was not okay. It all came out, and then everything just came to the surface. So it was literally all the anxiety, all the depression, all of the confusion and the frustration about, I don't know what to do. I know I don't like the life I've created. I'm not happy in it. I don't feel comfortable in it. I don't feel like I would choose it again. Not the people. Like, I love the people that I've created or the person that I've married. It wasn't that. It was just the lifestyle and the way that my life felt. It wasn't the right lifestyle for me. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, you've got to know. I'm a firm believer. You've got to know what's right for you and what's not right for you. And you've got to listen to the signs. You've got to listen to how your body reacts, to the way that you're living. Are you happy? Can you breathe properly? Can you feel peaceful? Do you feel content? And I didn't have any of those things, but it was all my own doing in a way. And so it was this kind of, it felt like the world was crashing down around me because all the structures, and I actually remember in my head, it felt like the columns that were propping up my mental world crumbled and just came crashing down. And it was a really scary experience at the time. But, probably on this podcast, you'll hear from a lot of other people on their healing journey that it was when they were literally at rock bottom, like on the floor. I've got nothing left. I can't do this anymore. Something has to change. I'm going to have to do something big that's going to change this and turn all of this around. And so that's what I did. And that was effectively the start of all of it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can absolutely resonate with the on the floor, on your knees, done, nothing left to give. Like, I've heard that same story so many times and lived it myself. So I can absolutely hear that. And as you kind of went through that process, like, as much as we would love to, like, love for it to be like, oh, you noticed and then everything got better. It doesn't necessarily work that quickly. So, like, what was the sort of path you had to walk, like the darkness you had to embrace, what did you have to find out about yourself as you kind of went through that journey before you could sort of start moving and healing out the other side?
I think it felt like at a certain point the penny dropped. So of course there was the like, physically I was in bits. I was shaky, I was cold, I felt sick all the time, I was nervous. It was a really uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable and mentally and emotionally uncomfortable time. And so there was a lot of things that I could do that would help and that I did do. So I started going for walks every day on the beach. It's like absolutely my kind of spiritual home to be on the beach, near the water, ideally in the water, not swimming because I haven't got the guts for the cold water swimming yet, but feet in the water and being really connected. So that really helped. The walking, getting fresh air, getting sun on my face. I took caffeine out of the equation. I took alcohol out of the equation. I really did everything that I knew how to do. Sorry, I did everything that I knew how to do to fix myself physically. So I also started to get into meditation as well, which previously I'd kind of rolled my eyeballs at, thinking like, well, what is that all about? That's not going to help. But there was a friend of mine at the time who said, have you tried it? It's really, really good for alleviating depression, anxiety, and stress. And I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose. I'll give it a go. So I gave it a go. And I remember just scrolling on YouTube thinking, like, find a meditation. And I did one. It was about 10 minutes. And I thought, wow, I actually feel quite good. I actually feel quite calm. Oh, I can feel that having an impact on me, having a positive impact. And so I did that every day. And it was really like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. But it started to make a massive difference. And I really started to realize how hungry or starving I was for some positive seeds to be planted in my head. And meditation is an excellent way of putting really positive messages into your head and give you something to think about and give you a positive focal point, you know. And so all of those things, I started to feel stronger in my body. I started to feel stronger in my mind and in my kind of like emotional world as well. And that was what I did probably over the course of around about 12 weeks. Like you said, you know, it's never a kind of, oh no, I'm not happy with something or something massive's happened. I can decide I'll be happy from now on. And it's not like flicking a switch. It really took me about 3 months to start to feel much better and clearer and calmer and more balanced, and the jitters had gone, and you know, and all that sort of stuff. So that was what I'd kind of done on a physical level. And then on one of the beach walks that I was doing, it dawned on me, it was like this penny drop moment where I thought, like, because I was asking myself, I can't live like that. I don't want to live like that. I don't want that life anymore. I don't want to feel the way that that life made me feel. So what do I want? And oh my God, this is going to require massive change, and change is really scary for a lot of people, you know, and it was definitely very scary for me at the time because it's uncertain. What am I going to do? Is it going to work? Blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And there was also this force that I felt that I was putting on myself. I didn't realize I was putting on myself this pressure for, well, you can't change. You've made your bed, you need to lie in it. You've got people relying on you. You know, you've made your decisions. You've got your lifestyle. You've got your bills to pay. You need to just sort yourself out, Nicky, so that you can do all of this. And I was so hard and critical of myself and so judgmental. And it was on this particular beach walk where the penny dropped, and I was like, I'm doing this to myself. I am actually creating all of this pressure. And the only person telling me that I shouldn't make some drastic changes is me. Like there's nobody else standing around going, well, actually, no, we've assessed your situation. You can't change. You can't change your mind. You have to just keep going. That was very much me. And the analogy that I really kind of felt, and I could see it and feel it at the time, was it was almost like I'd kind of walked into a prison cell, and I was sitting in the prison cell thinking I was locked up, but actually the door was open. That was very clearly the sort of the symbols and the signs that I was getting and experiencing. And so I realized this is on me. And in terms of the darkness that I had to confront within myself, it was very much this message, which is something that I teach today, which is you have to take radical responsibility for your own happiness and for your own life. And it's simply not fair. It's not possible, and it's not fair to try to hook your happiness onto someone else and get them to make you happy. So it was pointless. And I'll be really honest with you, I was frustrated with Adam, my husband, and I was frustrated with my parents, and I was frustrated with some of my friends that they hadn't in those previous years said, you look like you're not enjoying this. You should make a change. You know, and so I was kind of holding them responsible for why I was unhappy. And I hadn't really realized I was doing it. I hadn't appreciated the way that my brain was working. But that was the biggest learning for me, is that it's, you know, you can't make decisions for yourself, have them not be the right ones, have them, you know, sort of cause you to feel unhappy, and then start pointing the finger at other people or blaming them. And so even though it might sound weird that is what my experience had been, there was a great level of frustration, you know, that nobody had come along and said, and the easiest people to point the finger at is your husband, your parents, your friends. You know, I was frustrated that no one had come along and sat me down and said, you know, you need and you should, and I approve that you should make this different decision for how you want to live your life. And so the dawning that, oh, actually, no one could ever say that. No one could ever say that. Actually, the only person who needs to give you permission is yourself. And are you willing? Are you willing to give yourself permission? Are you willing to make the changes, even though they're scary? So yeah, that was the big lesson there, is that you just can't try to pin your happiness on someone else. You've really got to
Mm.
take the reins yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think that that was the biggest kind of outlook change that you had as you went through this journey?
I think the biggest outlook change for me, that was a massive part of it, which is this is me who has to be responsible for my life and my happiness and my well-being and my mental health and all the rest of it. Pardon me. There was definitely that, but the other part was you've got to get really clear and really conscious about what is actually most important to you in your life. So,
Mm.
and this is a lot about, this is a lot of what I coach people on today. It's a lot of
Mm.
the sort of the teachings that I have, which is it's very easy to end up in a situation, as I did, which is where you've subscribed to the like society's checklist of success, you know. So you've got a good job, you've got a good salary, you've got a nice house, a nice car, a husband or wife and kids, and all of those sorts of things. Check, 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 check. And and then you check off all the things on the list and go, well, hang on, world. You basically told me that if I did all these things, I'd be happy, and yet I'm miserable and I feel
Mm.
unfulfilled and I feel like there's something missing and I'm feeling like, is this it? You know, which is a bit of a spin to get into, because then there's all this guilt around, well, I should be really happy, I should be really proud, I should be really grateful for all these things. And if you're anything like me, I was really grateful for my hard
Mm.
work. I was really grateful for the companies that I worked for. I was really grateful for all of the things that I had. But there should not have been, and it really slowed me down, having this guilt of, but it just feels like there's something missing. It just feels like there's
Mm.
something missing. And the thing that was missing for me really was that I wasn't present in my life. I was on autopilot, I was working hard, I was, and it was that kind of thing. But I wasn't feeling, I didn't have a good sense of connection with the people who were the most important people in my life. I never really spent any time outdoors, so I
Mm.
wasn't connected with the world. I didn't really spend that much time with my friends, so I wasn't connected socially. And it was the price I was paying for
Mm.
this lifestyle that actually it turned out was just making me miserable. So a lot of what I teach and a lot of what I coach people on now is you need to understand the ingredients, your ingredients for a successful
Mm.
life, because it
Mm.
really doesn't matter. And the amount of women that come to me having the exact same experiences as I did, which is I've done all the things that I think I was meant to do, but I'm still not happy. Help, you know.
Mm.
And then it becomes, okay, well, let's dismantle what you think
Mm.
success was supposed to look like, and let's have a look at, let's project you, to the end of your life, looking back. What are the things that you've done so far that you love, that you're proud of, that's felt really good? And what are the things that you haven't allowed yourself yet to do?
Mm.
And how can we start to shift around some of your priorities and start to be a
Mm.
bit more creative with your time? Because everybody's really busy, of course. How can you be a bit more creative with your time so that you
Mm.
can get all the things done that you really want to do and that support your lifestyle and your life the way that it's happening now, but add in the things that are going to give you that sense of connection, that sense of fulfillment, the sense of adventure and joy and excitement and purpose and meaning and all of the things that
Mm.
actually, are going to accumulate to the point where you can say, I lived my life the way I really wanted to, and I did the things that were most important to me, and I loved the people that I loved the most. I kind of really cared for them,
Mm.
spent time with them, and enjoyed that time with them. So yeah, really about understanding what does success look like for you.
Mm.
Forget about what everyone else has told you. There might be some things on that list that you
Mm.
want on yours. That's perfectly okay. It doesn't really matter what's on your list. The point is that you know what's on your list and you've
Mm.
given it that time and you've given it that sort of reflect, that point of reflection, and made your
Mm.
commitment to yourself that you're going to live in line with that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. One of the really kind of key things that I see often in these kind of healing journeys, and like your journey is no different, is this idea of like you were doing something that made you really unhappy, and now you're doing something that makes you really, really happy. And so much has changed in that kind of the work that you do from corporate to, running My Zen days. And like there's quite a big shift there. How did that shift happen in this journey of healing, going from, you know, corporate, climbing the ladder, all of that, to running your own business, helping women find their purpose, change their lives? Like, how did that shift happen for you?
It was really it started in that first initial period of the 3 months, after I sort of was on my knees, like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. As I was starting to do all the beach walks and go on the big long walks and listen to the podcast that really fired me up and do some meditation that helped me reconnect to myself. And all of that, I was asking myself the question, okay, so if you don't want that life, what is the life that you want? And I've got quite an entrepreneurial spirit, so I'd always wanted my own business anyway. And I'd always wanted to coach people. I'd kind of had this natural ability and a natural passion since I was about 15, 16. So when everyone else was watching Home and Away and Neighbours, which were like shows, Australian shows that everyone would watch at tea time, I would scuttle off and read a book on personal development. Dr. Phil was a major kind of inspiration. I loved everything about understanding people's behavior, the way that you think, how you can change the way that you think, and all that sort of thing. So I always had a passion for all things personal development and coaching and psychology. I did psychology at university. And so that came very naturally to me. And it was, it was a coach that I hired at the time, who said, follow the breadcrumbs. Like, what were the things? Because when I was having this crisis of, I don't want that, but I don't know what I do want, it was like, follow the breadcrumbs. What are the things that you've always loved to do when you were younger? What are the things that make you feel really connected and as though you're making the biggest positive impact? And so it was all those little breadcrumbs that came together. And I was like, well, obviously I want to have a coaching business. Obviously, I want to help people who feel stuck in their own way, similar to the way that I had felt stuck and like, oh, I've created this life, but I don't feel much joy or fulfillment or purpose, to actually be able to get out of that place and into the sort of opposite way of being. And so through that 3 months, when I was learning all this mindfulness and meditation and all of that sort of well-being stuff, I was like, if I had known all of this, and if I had if I'd understood the importance of actually looking and maintaining myself mentally and emotionally, then what just happened to me would never have happened. I really believe that. I don't think that was something that necessarily had to happen. I think you can have a big job and lots of stress and life happens to you, but if you're looking after yourself and if you're balancing things and if you still feel as though you've got a lot of purpose and meaning in your life, you're not gonna necessarily burn out. And so that was what started to something that I started to feel really connected to, was for all of these things that I'm learning and that are literally changing my life and making me feel like a totally different person. How can I sort of package those up? How can I assimilate everything that I'm learning and make it easier and simpler and more enjoyable and effective for the people who are really, really busy and they're trying to manage everything, and actually they do really love their jobs, and they love their families, but they need something for them. So how can I infuse all of this, like my experience and the stuff that I've learned, in a way that they can integrate into their busy lives? Because that would have helped me back then. And I was looking around and I couldn't see anybody doing that, because there was nobody at the time who had a clear message about, you must slow down, you must look after yourself, you must maintain yourself mentally and emotionally and feed yourself on a kind of spiritual level as well. And here's a really simple and easy and enjoyable way to do it. It just felt like it was kind of too much of a mountain. So having navigated it and learned it and picked up the things that really worked, I really felt
Mm,
like it was a perfect opportunity and part of my duty almost to be able to say, hey everyone, if you're feeling like this, then come and try some of these things because it can really rebalance how you feel. And once you
mm,
start to change yourself from the inside, your
mm,
ability to manage all of the stresses that you have in the life and the busyness and the family and everything, all of that sort of it changes the energy that you bring to it.
mm,
So I love that, and I love helping people to live their lives, and maybe nothing massive changes. For some people, obviously it does because they have a similar kind of experience to me. But there's a lot of people that I work with who they don't want major changes. They just want to feel better and they just want to enjoy it more and they just want to feel less stressed and they want to feel more
mm,
present with people. And
mm.
so being able to work on a kind of, very intimate internal, your mindset, the way that you think, the way that you feel, and all that sort of thing just makes the manifestation of their life and their ability to enjoy it that much greater.
Oh, absolutely. I think that connection of like how well you know yourself to how well you live your life is such a important connection that so many people don't actually make. And a lot of the time, if you are highly stressed, you are far further away from yourself than you should be. And that is part of that problem that it causes, isn't it? Which is so interesting. So, what would your advice be for somebody who and I guess this is pretty much your kind of ideal client, somebody who's just kind of realized that they need to do something different. They're absolutely not in a good place. They're just kind of waking up to this healing journey, and to use your words, they're like on their knees, can't do this anymore. Like, what would your advice be for somebody who's at that point? Like, what could they do? What should they be thinking about? Like, how do they start moving forward?
Mhm. So my advice, and if that is you and you identify as that person, um, really I would encourage you to start tuning into what are you telling yourself, right? What are the things that you're saying to yourself about how things have to be, how things should be, how you should be? What are you saying to yourself about what you can't do, or what you're not allowed to do, or what that sort of sense of where are you putting kind of binary thinking patterns? Where do you have those? Where are they active? Where are you telling yourself that you can't make changes? And I'm a massive, massive advocate and fan of journaling. So I would really recommend you get a pen and paper and start. And you might have to do this over a few days. All the ideas might not come to you, but if you can catch yourself, because this is really, it's healing. A massive part of healing, from my point of view, is awareness and becoming aware of the things that are causing you pain.
Mhm,
And so for me, a lot of the things that were causing me pain was this belief that I had that I didn't have a choice.
mhm,
Haven't got a choice. You've made your bed, you need to lie in it. That was a good one. That was a very regular, repeating thought that was on a loop. How selfish would it be? That would be so selfish if you wanted to make a change. People are relying on you.
mhm,
All of those sorts of things. So I would really encourage you to tune in and write it down, because the power of seeing some of the thoughts written down in front of you is unbelievable, because
mhm,
then you start to get your sort of logical thinking mind goes, well, that's not true. That actually, for example, wouldn't it be so selfish of me to make a change? That would be such a selfish thing to do. Well, you can start to, your logical mind, once you can see in front of you, will go, well, no, of course it's not selfish, because if you're really unhappy and you're on your knees, that is a sign, that's a message that something's not right. And if you think about it from that point of view, if you give in and you believe some of the thoughts that are just habits, if you believe those things, it's going to keep you stuck. But if, say, for example, for me, if I had stayed stuck and I had continued to believe that I didn't have a choice and that there wasn't any options and I couldn't make any changes because it would be too selfish and all of that stuff, then how do you suppose I would have been to live with? What kind of
mhm,
mom, what kind of energy would I have had towards my kids? towards my husband, towards my parents, because remember I was busy blaming everybody for why I was feeling so crap. Um, that is actually quite selfish because if you're not looking after yourself, if you're not listening, there's a quote where your life is always speaking to you, and your body's always speaking to you. There's all these messages, and your feelings are messengers, and they're valid. So if you're on your knees and if you feel like I've had enough, that's it, listen. Just listen to what that message is and like figure out what's in that message for you. What parts of your life do you love? What parts of your life do you feel happy with? And then what parts of your life, or what choices, or what environments, or what people really are resulting in you feeling like you're just on your knees, because they're the parts that need to change. Maybe they need to go. Maybe you need a complete shift around. Maybe you need to renegotiate some things. Um, but that's the first thing, is tune in, be really aware of what you're telling yourself. Write the things down, get really specific about what's causing you to feel this way. And if it feels a bit too much, if it feels a bit overwhelming, and you think, I can't, it's everything, just sit with it. Just sit with it until, because imagine your mind, and especially I remember feeling this very strongly at the point when I was in that state. It felt like my head was those snow globes where you've got a nice little scene and all of the particles. It felt like someone had shook my head like the snow globe, and the particles and the thoughts were everywhere, spinning. They wouldn't stop. And it's impossible to see and to pick one, and be able to look at it. But that's what you need to do. And if you can slow down and let your thoughts start to settle, like in the snow globe where everything starts to settle, you can then look around you and you can pick up certain parts, certain threads, certain particles, and say, is it this? Is it my relationship? Is it where I live? Is it my job? Is it my lack of connection to nature? Is it my lack of connection to other people? What is it? What is it that's causing all of this overwhelm, all this stress and anxiety and everything? And that's your starting point. You start to look at, this is the list of things that needs to change. Okay, so how might I change it? What can I do? And I really encourage you, like I've had to do, and it served me really well, to take radical responsibility for your own happiness, and as well journal on that, and make your notes of where am I outsourcing responsibility for my happiness? Where am I blaming? Who am I blaming? What am I blaming them for? And you might not have done it explicitly. You might not have said to your partner, it's your fault, or I'm waiting for you to do this. You might not have said it, but it might be going around. It might be a sort of sentiment that you've got in your mind. And the more honest you can be, and the more aware you can be about what some of this faulty thinking is that's resulting in you feeling this way, then you're in a better place to be able to start to unpick. And it's a long process, it's never, as we said earlier, it's not about, I've never seen healing be a fast journey, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to unpick, or you're going to have to unlearn, or you're going to have to process whatever it is that's caused you to feel this way. And that takes time, and building that skill of self-awareness and self-acceptance, and having really radical self-compassion through all of it, because it's not, I've heard Jacky say this before, healing, it's not linear, it's not fast, it's not a straight line, it's not simple, it's hard and it's messy and it's uncomfortable, but it's really necessary. Because actually the value that you get on the other side of it, if you can commit to yourself to working through it, it might feel like you're walking through treacle, but it's worth it, because you get to the other end and you're a different person by the end. Well, by the end of the journey, and I say the end of the journey, I don't think healing necessarily that there is an end point, because life is life and it chucks all this stuff at you all of the time. So you're constantly learning the skills of adaptability and flexibility and integration, and all the while it's helping to become the person that you're meant to be at that stage in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like that idea that like healing is a skill is so is so valid. Like learning to be able to, as you said, like meditate, journal, become more aware of yourself, aware of your thoughts, manage your behaviors, your beliefs. Like all of that is a skill. And I think that the process of healing, the more that you do it, the easier it gets because you learn the skills. And when something does come up and life throws something at you and it's something that you weren't expecting or you're not ready for, suddenly you have a bunch of skills that you can pull back on to go, oh, actually, I can deal with this now, rather than that super overwhelming feeling that we have like right at the beginning when it's the first time and we've got none of the skill set and we don't know how to deal with anything. So I think there's a real beauty in what you do as a coach and how you bring this to the world and how you teach people these skills, like so that they actually have the ability to manage this and go to that next level. Because that idea that healing never stops, I think is so important. And I always ask people when they come on the podcast, like, what's your next level of healing? What's the next thing that you're focusing on personally in your healing journey?
I think so. For me, it's integration of um, some of the big life events that have happened. So, a number of years ago, I lost my brother. I also lost my brother-in-law, and those are things that, grief is a lifelong thing. Anybody listening to this, and I know you, Jacky, as well, you've had your own experiences of this, where people that are really close suddenly aren't there anymore, and it's a real tragedy. But I think one of the ways to cope with it, not necessarily heal from it, because there's a certain attachment that I have to my grief, because grief is a reflection of love. So if you really loved somebody, the grief is going to run very deep, and that's something that I honor and I respect it, and it's part of my life, and in a way I wouldn't have it any other way, because I don't want to just heal from having, lost really special people in my life and be fine. Because to me, that's just not how I feel about it. I feel as though these things happen, and as much as you can integrate your memory and the essence of the person, like what you loved most about them, the thing that you were most connected to them about, if you can infuse what you do in order to keep them alive, in a sense, and to keep their memory alive and keep their spirit alive, and also maintain that sense of connection. So I've got a really strong connection, with my brother, and I reflect a lot on how he lived his life. He lived for 30 years, and it was an incredible privilege to be his sister. The man was absolutely beautiful inside and out, the biggest adventurer I've ever known. He was constantly chucking himself out of aeroplanes, doing skydives or like bungee jumping or diving. He did everything. He traveled everywhere. And I watch his video back. There's a video that's one of my favorite ones, and it's sort of a mix of the year of traveling that he did with his friends, and it's very high energy, it's very high vibe. But I watched that, and his face, he's so happy. He's just so happy. He's loving his life. He's with his friends. He had a massive heart, he broke hearts like literally all over the world. Including some of my friends, I have to say. But but watching him just live, like really live. And this when I think of that, it's the opposite of how I felt I was living. You can see the energy and the joy and the excitement, everything on his face in this video. And when I was like, before I had the burnout situation, I just honestly felt really flat, uninspired, not motivated. I didn't feel good. There was no joy. And actually, to compare living your life that way and the result that it produces, compared to living a life where you're not connected to it. It's not what you want. It's not what you would choose again. If someone could just pick you out of the busyness and say, this is what you actually want. And so I really, in everything that I do, and as part of the sort of as a lifestyle, but for the rest of my life, is how can I make sure that I've got a bit of that, And I'm not saying, that you should spend your life going around skydiving and bungee jumping and stuff, because obviously you have to you have to live your life as well. But actually, where can you get those moments, like the moments that really take your breath away?
Mm.
Can you drop them in? Can you plan them in? Can you be open to allowing them to happen in even the most mundane, simple situations, like going for a walk on the beach with your child? That could be either a really boring experience if you're checked out and you're just not there, or it could be a really beautiful, earthing, connecting, gorgeous, magical experience. It all depends on how you approach it and what your intention is for how you want to live your life. So I think that's it for me. I think it's a lifelong continuing to heal from the grief, which I don't think will ever really go away. And as I said, I don't think I would ever really want it to go away, because it's a massive part of my life. It's a massive reminder, and it's a reflection of the depth of the love. So for me, the positive way to move forward with that is to do him proud, obviously, and to maintain my kind of bond in the way that I can. But to look at his life and say, well, what does his life teach me? What does his life teach me about what's really important? And I'm fascinated with the work of Bronnie Ware, who was a palliative care nurse. So she looked after people who were within the last sort of 3 to 12 weeks of their lives. And she picked up the themes of, what were their major regrets in their life. And the 5 were, it was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself. I wish I'd spent more time with my friends and like stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I'd allowed myself to be happier. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And there's one other that escapes me, but it's an amazing book, and it's really worth a listen. And so all of that is a constant for me. I'm constantly reflecting on that insight and on that wisdom from people who are at the end of their life, and they're looking back now, and they've got the most precious crystal clarity. They are so clear about what they did that they loved, and what they wish they had done. And also there's the sort of other side of the coin, which is Bronnie Ware also spoke to people who were at the end of their life and had no regrets. And, and she found themes in that as well, which was, I felt like I was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I felt like I was really connected to my family. I had a lot of fun, and I allowed myself to be happy. It's those sorts of messages. And so I love that. I would say I'm like borderline obsessed with the wisdom and the insight that comes from people when they're looking back and they have an entirely different and much sharper perspective, because it's so easy for us. You go from one day to the next, to the next, to the next, and you can understandably fall into autopilot, because your brain wants to conserve energy. So it's just, you're kind of like plodding along. But before you know it, it's the weekend again, or it's a new year, or a decade's gone by, and the time is passing anyway. And so this is part of my with my Zen days, it's like a movement to say, will you look at your life? Will you look at your life and ask yourself now, while you've still got the chance, are you happy with it? Are you doing what you want to do with your time? And I'm not saying, you should say, no, I hate work and sack off the job and just live a party lifestyle. It's not that. But it's about saying, what are your priorities, and are you honoring, and is your life a reflection of the things that you say are the most important to you? And if it's not, don't panic. You just need to make a few shifts. You need to make a few changes. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Where do you want to spend your time that you currently spend doing X, Y, Z? You want to do A, B, C. How can you start to shift and play around with that? Because it's possible, because you haven't, you're not in that situation that I cursed myself with, which is, you've made your bed, need to lie in it, just put up with it and shut up with it, But actually, this is my whole thing, is that you've got choices, you've got the opportunity to make some changes. And it serves you, because you'll be a happier person. And then that just means, when you're a happier person, that you're nicer for everybody that you love to be around. So everybody benefits from you looking after yourself and making sure that you're happy with the way that you're living your life. So, and I honestly, Jacky, I think the fact that I started my Zen days in the first place And it's sort of 6 years on now, and I'm still singing the same tune. That's part of my healing journey as well, because I love the topic. I love the focus of all of this work. I
Mm.
love the conversations that I get to have. And because it's my work now, it's a constant reminder to me. And I need this reminder. It's in my face every day. You
Mhm.
know, who do you want to be? How do you want to live? How do you want your life to feel? What would a
Mm.
successful life look and feel like to you? Because the
Mm.
mission is I don't want people that are in my world to get to the end of their life and go, oh damn
Mm.
it, I wasn't myself. I
Mm.
lived for other people. I conformed to what I was supposed to do, and I wish I hadn't, and I've wasted it, and now I haven't got a chance to change it. So it's a
Mm.
rally against that.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so incredible, like all of the different elements of, that conforming, the the grief, the depression, the anxiety, like all of that comes into this process of healing. And it's, as we've said, like it's a hard journey, but I think when you listen to your story, and like when I listen to you, it just makes me smile so much to see that there's so much light and happiness and joy, and the journey is worth the work.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
so worth it. Like you get not to an end point, but just to a better point. And I think that
yeah,
that is the whole thing of healing, isn't it? It's not about the end journey. It's about absolutely loving the journey that you're on.
yeah, loving it. Or even if you can't, if you're feeling like, oh, because a lot of people, they'll come to me and they'll say, I'm flat, I'm bored, I'm not motivated, I feel stuck, and all that sort of thing. And
Mm.
so to say, well, we're going to get you to a point where you love your life can just feel like it's a different planet to them. But even if the say in like, a month
Mm.
or 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, if you'd address some of the biggest obstacles that are getting in the way of your happiness, isn't that a massive win?
Mm.
Isn't that a massive win? Or if you, in the course of the next 1 or 2 months, have started doing something that you love to do, picking up a
Mm.
hobby that you used to do when you were younger that actually gives you a massive sense of joy, even something as pointless as jigsaws, right? Even something as pointless as cross stitch. And I'll say that, and I'm not calling these things pointless. What I'm saying is, for people who are really busy and really
Mm.
productive, they'll look at something like a jigsaw or something like doing a cross stitch and go, well, what's the point? What's the outcome? Nothing happens as a result of that. It's not an effective use of my time. I would urge you, if that's you, to just come out, move your perspective, and have a look at it from a different angle. If it gave you an hour of mental relaxation, is it worth it? If it gave you a little dopamine hit when you put that
Mm.
final piece of the jigsaw in and it's taken you an hour or two, is it worth it? And the answer is yes, it is, because the more you can help yourself, support yourself, and make yourself feel good,
Mm.
this is part of, we were talking earlier about like you change the inner world, like this is an inner game. And the more you can feed yourself good stuff, positive stuff, give yourself those dopamine hits, generate the feel good hormones, don't you think that that's going to make you a much more wonderful person to be around? And
Mm.
you'll become a much better problem solver, a more creative problem solver, a better leader, a better partner, because you're juiced up, you're fueled up, because you're doing all the little things that are stimulating those feelings inside.
Yeah, absolutely. I have absolutely adored spending this time with you, Nikki. Thank you
Me
so
too.
much for coming on the podcast. Like, I've absolutely loved having this chat with you today. I will obviously share down below like all about your business and about what you do, so that people can have a read and they can come across and follow you and get into your world, because I think that what you do is so life-changing for people. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Diary of Discovery.